Today's lesson is the sweet success of condensed milk. Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And my name is Helen.
And today we're going to talk about milk. We like to drink milk, at least some people do. Some people are lactose intolerant, so they can't really drink milk, but that's not a problem for me. How often do you drink milk, Helen?
I don't drink milk very often, but when it comes to condensed milk, that's another story because I don't have to drink condensed milk. I can enjoy it in other foods like cakes and also milk tea. I like to put condensed milk in milk tea, which is the Hong Kong way of making milk tea, I believe.
Well, it does sound quite tasty, but I've got a question here. In Taiwan here, they have these kind of milk powders like Anchor and Clean and brands like that. Is condensed milk the same thing as milk powder?
No, not exactly. Condensed milk is milk that's usually sold in a can. It's thick and it's sticky. It's kind of yellow in color and it's very sweet because sugar is added to condensed milk and it has a fatty flavor. It has preserved that fatty flavor of milk, which is why it can be used to make desserts.
Okay, well, it's kind of sweet, so I probably won't be putting that into my coffee. I don't really like sweet things, or I'm supposed to stay away from sweet things. But we will talk about condensed milk in our lesson for today. So let's dive right in here. Let's listen to the first part of our lesson and find out exactly what condensed milk is.
The sweet success of condensed milk. Many people drink milk on a daily basis, and it has become a staple of diets around the world. Before the invention of refrigerators, however, fresh milk was difficult to come by and could be obtained only if there were cows nearby. And as we know, milk spoils quickly. A method of preserving this nutritious substance was needed.
大家好，标题中我们看到单字 condensed， 这个字是形容词，指液体浓缩的。例如 Betty added water to the condensed juice mix. Betty 把水加进浓缩综合果汁。另外，除了上面的意思，这个字还可以指扼要的、压缩的，像是 Tom found a condensed version of the book he was supposed to read online. Tom 在网络上找到他应该要读的那本书的浓缩版。再补充这个字的动词 condense, C-O-N-D-E-N-S-E, condense, 有以下两种用法。第一，指浓缩或是压缩。举例来说 The brilliance of this author is his ability to condense an entire philosophy into one short story. 这位作者厉害之处是他有办法把一套完整的哲学概念浓缩成一篇短篇故事。第二，指凝结。我们可以说Water vapor condenses into liquid when warm air in the atmosphere rises and cools. 当大气中的暖空气上升并冷却，水蒸气就会凝结成液态水。再来，我们看到名词 staple， 指主食或是主要产品。例如 Pancakes are one of America's staple breakfast foods. 煎饼是美式早餐主要的食物之一。或是 Dancing is a staple in many live shows, so actors often must learn how to dance. 跳舞是许多现场直播秀的主要环节，因此演员们通常必须学习如何跳舞。接着我们看到片语 come by 加名词，表示得到点点点，或是取得点点点，像是 Such a beautiful house is difficult to come by, so I bought it. 这么漂亮的房子很难获得，所以我买下来了。另外，除了上面的意思，这个片语还有以下两种用法。第一，表示拜访某人住处，我们可以说 Some friends came by for dinner last night and stayed till midnight. 一些朋友昨晚过来吃晚餐，待到半夜才走。第二，表示从旁经过，例如 My car broke down, but somebody came by and helped me. 我的车抛锚了，不过有人经过并帮助我。
And everyone. Welcome back. So today we're talking about condensed milk. The title is The Sweet Success of Condensed Milk. So as we mentioned, condensed milk is the sweet milk that's sold in a can. It's sweet and it's sticky and it's good to put in drinks and in sweet desserts. But why is it called condensed milk? Well, let's look at the word condensed. When you condense a liquid, you make it thicker by removing some of the water. So if you're in an American supermarket, you'll find not only condensed milk, but also condensed juice, which is usually in the frozen section. And that's just juice that has a lot of water taken out of it. So you get a very, very strong flavor of juice. And then when you take it home, you just add water to it to make it taste like normal juice. Or you have condensed soup in a can, which is soup that's very salty because it doesn't have a lot of liquid. And then you add boiling water to this condensed soup to make it taste better and fuller.
So it's still a little wet. It's not dehydrated, but of course a lot of the moisture has been removed. If it's dehydrated, then it would be milk powder, but condensed milk is just made more concentrated. I remember when I was very young learning to read, there were these condensed books that you could read. If you weren't quite ready to read, say, War and Peace or something like that, you could read a condensed book that was maybe 1/5 of the size of the original book. It was, shortened and they left a lot of stuff out, but they still told you the basic story.
Right. So condensed basically means you take something and you make it smaller, you make it more concentrated so that you still get the same idea of that thing. So in any case, it says here, many people drink milk on a daily basis, and it has become a staple of diets around the world. So when something is a staple, it's something that is common. It's an important product. And it's usually used for food, meaning it's a type of food that you always have in your refrigerator or in your pantry, such as milk or bread or eggs, things that you can't do without.
Right. Rice here, of course, is a staple in the local Taiwanese diet, and bread is a staple in Western diets, and milk is a staple in diets all over the world. People in many different countries drink milk on a daily basis. So that's what the word staple here means. It's just common in their diets. And before the invention of refrigerators, however, fresh milk was difficult to come by and could be obtained only if there were cows nearby. So you might not believe it, but there was a time in history when we did not have refrigerators. Okay, we had to eat food fresh and we couldn't save it in the refrigerator. And so it was kind of inconvenient in those days. But yeah, before the invention of refrigerators, milk was hard to get. Now, invention here just means when something is created for the first time, like the invention of electricity or the invention of the light bulb.
Right. It could be a tool, a machine, or a system that is invented. And an invention is that thing that somebody has invented. So before the refrigerator was invented, what did somebody do if they needed to have milk every day? How do they keep the milk fresh? If they lived in a city, they didn't have any cows nearby. If you had a cow nearby, you can just milk the cow every day to get fresh milk. But the invention of refrigerators allowed people to keep milk fresh by keeping it cool. So it says here it's difficult to come by milk when you don't live next to a cow or if you live in a city. To come by something means to get something, especially something that's not so easy to get. So for instance, last year when COVID-19 was exploding and people realized how serious it was, suddenly everybody went out to the pharmacies and to the supermarkets to try to get surgical masks. So surgical masks were difficult to come by during that period.
Yeah, or I'm a big fan of Mexican food, but people in Taiwan don't really like Mexican food that much, so Mexican food is difficult to come by here in Taiwan. Or for Taiwanese people living in the States, good Chinese food is difficult to come by if you're in the United States. So yeah, back in the day when there were no refrigerators, fresh milk was difficult to come by unless there were cows living nearby. You could obtain cow milk if cows were living nearby. You could go over to Farmer Brown's farm and say, hey, Farmer Brown, can I get some milk from you? Oh, sure, here you go. Here's some milk right here. But you probably had to drink it rather quickly before it spoiled. Now, here we've got the word obtain, and that just means to get something.
Right. You can obtain some milk from Farmer Brown, which means you can get some milk from Farmer Brown. And to obtain something, it does mean to get, but it's often used with things that are not so easy to get. So I could also say you need to obtain the teacher's permission before you can leave the classroom. So the teacher might not give you permission, so you need to obtain the permission from the teacher.
Exactly. You need to get it or obtain it. Now, and as we know, milk spoils quickly. If food goes bad, if it gets rotten, you can say it spoils. And a method of preserving this nutritious substance was needed. Yeah, we like our milk and we want to keep it around for a long time, but hey, it doesn't last long. It spoils quickly, so we've got to preserve our milk. To preserve something means to keep it in its original condition for as long as possible.
Right. So you can preserve food by adding vinegar to it or by salting it. There are many different ways of preserving food without a refrigerator, actually. And in this case, you can preserve fresh milk by doing something in particular to it, by condensing it. And people want to do this. They want to have milk every day because it's a nutritious food. Nutritious means that it provides substances that people need in order to be healthy, in order to grow.
It has lots of nutrients like vitamins and minerals and protein and stuff like that. It is nutritious. It has a lot of nutrients. And it is good for your nutrition. Okay, that brings us to the end of the first part of our lesson for today. Let's move on now to the second part and talk about someone by the name of Gail Borden.
Gail Borden, an American inventor, came up with a solution: condensed milk. Borden had seen children become sick and die from drinking unsafe milk, and he was determined to do something about it. In the early 1850s, he created a method of preserving milk after watching people use a special machine called a vacuum pan to boil and condense fruit juice. He added sugar to the milk and canned the end result, creating condensed milk, a much safer and longer-lasting alternative to regular cow milk at the time.
最后第二部分我们看到单字 vacuum 这个字是形容词，指真空装置的。举例来说 In a vacuum tube, there is no oxygen. 在真空管中是没有氧气的。另外，这个字也可以当名词，指真空或是吸尘器。例如 Some foods are stored in a vacuum in order to make them last longer. 有些食物为了延长食用期限用真空保存。或是I used a vacuum to clean the carpet. 我用吸尘器清洁地毯。
So milk is a staple in many people's diets. People like to drink it every day, but before the invention of refrigerators, it was difficult to preserve milk. So what happened? Well, this person came along, Gail Borden, an American inventor, and Gail Borden came up with a solution: condensed milk.
Now, Borden had seen children become sick and die from drinking unsafe milk, and he was determined to do something about it. So yeah, he saw children get sick, and he also saw them die from drinking spoiled milk. That's no good. You can't let kids drink spoiled milk, but hey, milk spoils quickly. We've got to do something about that because we don't want our future disappearing like that. Children are our future. We have to take care of them.
Yes, and Gail Borden felt the need to do something to prevent this from happening in the future. So in the early 1850s, he created a method of preserving milk after watching people use a special machine called a vacuum pan to boil and condense fruit juice. So he got the idea of condensing milk by observing people using a method and a tool to do the same thing to fruit juice, which is they took fruit juice and then they took the water out of it to make it thicker, and they did this by boiling it. So after observing this method, he thought, maybe the same thing could be done to fresh milk.
Okay, and this was a vacuum pan. A vacuum, of course, is a space that has no air in it, like space. Outer space is a vacuum. And I guess if you have a dirty carpet, you could use a vacuum cleaner because it sucks air into it because it's got this empty space there and the air is attracted to that empty space, hence a vacuum cleaner. And this particular machine could boil and condense fruit juice. So there's condense as a verb, and he added sugar to the milk and canned the end result, creating condensed milk, a much safer and longer-lasting alternative to regular cow milk at the time. Now, if something's canned, it is simply put in a can or a tin.
Yes, and this process creates a much longer lasting and safer alternative to regular cow milk. An alternative is something that you can choose instead of something else. So condensed milk thus became an alternative to regular cow milk. And I can also say many coffee shops today offer oat milk as an alternative to regular cow milk because a lot of people are lactose intolerant, which means they can't drink cow milk. They get sick or they have stomach issues. So they prefer to have oat milk or soy milk in their coffee or in their drinks.
Have you tried either of those alternatives in your coffee, Helen?
Yes, I have. I've tried oat milk and it tastes very good. It tastes almost like cow milk. Soy milk, on the other hand, doesn't taste as good in my opinion because it has a very strong soybean flavor.
I would imagine that to be the case. I have yet to try oat milk in my coffee. I think I will try that alternative. But again, condensed milk is an alternative to regular cow milk, so therefore it is longer lasting. It won't spoil as quickly. Okay, that brings us to the end of the second part of our lesson for today. Let's wrap things up by listening to the third part.
American brothers George and Charles Page took Borden's invention to Europe and founded the Anglo-Swiss Condensed Milk Company in Switzerland in 1866. They made condensed milk easily accessible to everyone, and their product is still sold today under the popular brand name Nestle Milkmaid.
So Gail Borden came up with this process for making condensed milk, and this process stayed in America. It was used in America. However, it soon spread to Europe, because American brothers George and Charles Page took Borden's invention to Europe and founded the Anglo-Swiss Condensed Milk Company in Switzerland in 1866. Of course, Switzerland is the most apt place to do this because Switzerland is famous for its fresh milk, its cows that live up in the hills and they eat fresh grass. And honestly, Switzerland probably has one of the best quality milks in Europe.
They do, but I'm still trying to figure out the relationship between cows and watches. Why do Swiss people make such good watches and have such great milk at the same time? What's the connection there? But in any case here, these American brothers, George and Charles Page, took Borden's invention to Europe, and then we've got this Anglo-Swiss Condensed Milk Company, which was founded in 1866. Anglo, of course, refers to England usually, and they made condensed milk easily accessible to everyone, and their product is still sold today under the popular brand name Nestle Milkmaid. Yes, indeed, they made condensed milk easily accessible to everyone, which means everybody can easily get it, they can obtain it, they can buy it.
So with George and Charles Page, everybody could get condensed milk. It wasn't just something that you had to go to a particular place to find. It was easy to come by and it could be obtained very easily.
Yes, indeed, this product is still available today under the popular brand name Nestle Milkmaid. Have you seen this brand in Taiwan anywhere, Helen?
No, I haven't. I haven't seen Borden either, even though in America I saw Borden a lot.
Yeah, it's quite common there, but I have yet to find it here, although I must confess I really haven't been looking for it. But that does bring us to the end of our lesson for today. It's time now to listen to our Chinese teacher.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文一开始写到说 Many people drink milk on a daily basis. 许多人每天喝牛奶。好，文中它用到 on a daily basis 就是表达每天，它就跟 every day 的意思一样。好，那这边注意一下 basis 它有这种基础根据的意思，我们常常会用 on或是 and 加上形容词再加 basis 来表达在什么样的原则上以什么为基础，像 on a regular basis 就是规律的经常定期的那种意思。我们还可以用 on a daily basis 来表达每天的， on a weekly basis 每周的， on a monthly basis 每个月的，或是 on a yearly basis 每年的。好，例如 They go grocery shopping on a weekly basis. 他们每周都会去采买日常用品。我们读到课文第二句 Before the invention of refrigerators, however, fresh milk was difficult to come by and could be obtained only if there were cows nearby. 然而在冰箱发明之前，新鲜的牛奶难以取得，只有附近有母牛才能获得。好，这边有两个重点。首先是片语动词 come by 的用法。come by 不是干杯，也不是连锁饮料店哦。好，它在课文里面是及物用法，用来表达取得、得到，通常是指获得不容易得到的东西。例如 How did you come by these old pictures? 你是怎么得到这些旧照片的啊？好，那么 come by 当这个意思来解释时，我们常常也会用 hard to come by 来表达难以取得。像我们可以说 A good job is hard to come by. 好的工作是很难得到的。那么 come by 也有不及物的用法，这时候它的意思就会跟 come over 一样，去表达拜访，通常是指拜访某人的住处啊，顺道拜访的那种语义。例如 Sharon said that she would come by later. Sharon 说她待会会过来拜访一下。好，那么第二个重点是 only if 的用法。Only 在这边是表达只有在什么样的时间啊、地点或是情况。那么 only if 是用来引导表示条件的副词子句，表达说只有在什么的条件下某事才可能发生。好，那它的句型就是主词加动词什么什么 only if 主词加动词。例如 I will forgive you Only if you apologize. 只有在你道歉的这个条件下，在这个情况下，我才会原谅你哦。好，那如果我们要把 only if 子句呢，把它移到句首来使用的话，这时候主要子句的主词和动词必须倒装，把它形成助动词加主词加动词的句型。好，举例来说 I will go on the trip with them only if I have the money. 我有钱才会跟他们去旅行。那如果我们要把 only if I have the money 移到句首的话，我们就必须把主要子句的这个助动词 will 移到主词前方，形成倒装。也就是说，本来是 I will go 会变成 will I go， 句子就会写作 Only if I have the money will I go on the trip with them。 好，那么以上是今天重点整理，我们回顾今天单字吧。
Invention. The invention of the computer has changed the world in incredible ways. Obtain. First editions of this book are almost impossible to obtain. Preserve. You can preserve meat by covering it in salt and leaving it in a sealed container. Nutritious. To maintain a healthy body, exercise regularly and eat nutritious food. Vacuum. My best friend gave me a vacuum flask for my birthday. Alternative. Honey can be used as an alternative to sugar in this recipe.
Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I'm Helen.
See you next time.